Well, fancy seeing all of you here on a Friday. Except for Justin, of course. I feel for you, bud. By the way, thanks for sending me that article. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Ben Cominos here. Happy Friday. What's the date? August 7th. Hopefully you're ready as I am to hit weekend point here. It's been a long 2 weeks in Northeast Wisconsin, and I have a feeling next week's going to be the beginning, at least of this show, of some new things going on here. Um, Hopefully you all feel the same way. And yes, Jar Manny, I did see that. We're up to 813 on the subscriber list. We need 187 more subscribers to monetize. It feels more doable than ever. I think we're going to get there. I don't know that we're going to get there, but I think that we're going to get there sometime between now and when I pass away. So I'm looking forward to that. We have got a lot to get into here. I don't want to guarantee that this is happening because I never got a confirmation text, but I have been texting back and forth with Katrina DeVille, candidate for Congressional District 8 here in Wisconsin. We heard from Mark Scheffler on Wednesday. It's available on my Tube of You page. And we're hopefully going to have Katrina DeVille on today, and the game plan is to have Rick Crossan on Monday as well. And at some point, we'll get David Crowley on here too, because I mean, what the hell? I might not have internet for a week and a half, but I'm going to cram all this shit in right before the primaries because that's what Outside the Box does. Before we get into the show proper, hold on. Forgot to turn my ring light on, and the thing is too far away, and I'm not going to get up and move the table and all that. It's a fuck it Friday. You're exactly right, gamer. I got a call from my friend Tim Roush, former sponsor of the show, possible future sponsor, and hint hint. But he wanted to let me know that there is a free meal for linemen at Mims. Um, Anybody who's listening to me right now that has linemen in their life that have been working to help restore people's power and get people back into the swing of things post tornado, they're all being offered a free meal at Mims in Menasha. I'm doing my part to just spread some awareness about there. So if any of you are linemen, or if any of you know linemen in your life, I know we've got plenty of union people that listen to the show. So if any of you know anybody that might be able to benefit from that, that is going on today. Tim himself, he was helping a woman who was dealing with some aftermath of the tornado as well, and he was hooking her up for free because that's the kind of guy he is. And he told me the story. He said that the neighbor came out, saw the truck, and apparently he is a super fan of Outside the Box. So when he saw the Roush Plumbing truck, he got very excited about seeing that. Um, but awesome way to wake up. Always excited to find out there's people like the show. I just assume it's a handful of people every day, so that's nice. Did I see Tony Evers at the state fair talking shit about Fran Hong's old Thanksgiving tweets? Yeah, I did. I don't know if you saw the video I posted on any of my socials. I also post, obviously, all my shorts on YouTube as well. But I posted that meme of Democrats when they fight Trump, and it's Barney the dinosaur, and then it's Democrats when they fight progressives, and it's the T Rex from that scene when it's chasing the Jeep in the original Jurassic Park. And I mean, it's like clockwork that this kind of stuff happens, and we will be getting into that today. Um, what we got here? Not cool. We love Tim. Yeah, I'm a big Tim fan, Carla. I appreciate that. See, Allie saying she's a super hater of the show. I got that vibe. You were hating before it was cool, says Carla. Haters are fans too. Exactly. Ask Todd Pingle. By the way, by the way, just for everybody keeping track at home, we have gotten from 22 emails to 26. So I received four more, all of them since 1:12 in the morning. So I definitely feel like I'm dealing with a hinged individual here. I feel safe right now. And yes, Ali is posting my links in the Tube of You chat. Um, Anybody who hasn't already subscribed to all my stuff, please consider doing so. Specifically to BU, but Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, it all helps. I love the TikTok shop. Good morning, Adam. How are you, bud? Always a pleasure to see you. Um, but we've got a lot to jump into here today, and I kind of want to start with what CKK was asking me. about Governor Evers and his comments on Francesca Hong. And I said this during Ben After Dark yesterday. It almost feels like I'm doing 2024 outside the box content right now, because as bad as I knew Trump would be for this country, I could not stop punching the Democrats about forcing Kamala Harris on us, about blocking any type of popular candidacy or ideas that obviously were percolating through with a number of voters. And so I kind of get the same vibe today. Hold on one second here. I want to make sure I have these stats up so I can read them to you correctly. Wapaka voting in 2024. Perfect. So, when these good ideas are presented, you would hope that politicians would know the right way to capitalize on these ideas. They would know, if you actually believe that Donald Trump is the threat that you claim he is, you would know when a good idea has been presented to you. So you see all these Democrats commenting on the Thanksgiving tweets. Now let's talk about the hypocrisy of that just in and of itself. There is a scandal out right now about David Crowley and his Dirk McGurk anonymous profile on Twitter, where he said some very questionable things back in the day about women and a number of other different minority groups. And it's not very flattering, but if I'm going to be real, some of it's kind of funny in a shitty way. Like, I'm not saying, again, 5% Donald Trump in a shitty way. I was like, I can see a version of Ben that probably would have thought that was a funny comment to make. Thank you very much, Jay, for all the reposts and for Vote Blue as well. Thank you for being here. Get out of here. Get out of here right now. But so I find it ironic that the main strategy for Democrats, centrists, right now in the lead up to Tuesday, is to talk about old tweets from Francesca Hong, where she's like, there's a lot of questionable history surrounding Thanksgiving. You know, when I left the Toby Keith concert, I noticed there were a lot of drunk drivers on the road, and I was pretty nervous. Like, there were all these different things that people were that people are referencing as if it's a dooming kind of concept for the eventual election, and I just find that hard to believe. Um, and so, oh, I see Susan's excited about the scandal. It's not a scandal, Susan. I mean, it's he had some questionable tweets from like 15 years ago, and meanwhile, the Democrats are telling you this is why you have to vote for David Crowley because Francesca Hong has some questionable tweets. Meanwhile, Tom Tiffany's voting for fucking illegal wars and trickle down economics and tariffs that are strangling the Wisconsin agriculture sector, and so many other issues that everybody seems to be like, oh my God, how is Francesca Hong ever going to overcome this? We need to keep talking about Thanksgiving and Halloween ad nauseum until we hammer this home for anybody listening. That's why the title of today's episode is Will the Infighting Stop? We watched Haley Stevens throw her support behind El Sayed after the victory in Michigan. And honestly, I'm very happy to see that happen. And I do believe the voters will coalesce. And I want to believe that the same thing will happen here in Wisconsin, but I'm not sure. And I hope that it's borne out that it plays out the same way, but we're going to have to get there. As Jay says, they're scraping the bottom of the barrel to try and find stuff against her. I absolutely agree. I couldn't agree more, and I think it's a very embarrassing approach to try and do things here. More importantly, if you guys have not seen wait, you liked what? Her comments about the holidays? I kind of agree with you. I'm indifferent personally. I'm a guy, but let's start here. Because I have fought with plenty of progressives in my talk radio days, or excuse me, conservatives in my talk radio days about Juneteenth and whether or not it should be a holiday or not. And I would say, never mind it on the base value of like Obviously, black people feel like Independence Day doesn't represent Independence Day for them because they were still slaves when the Declaration of Independence was signed. So it really shouldn't take a rocket scientist to be able to explain why Juneteenth should be a thing. But even on its like most basic level, why do I have to convince you to get another day off of work and a reason to celebrate with your friends and family? Like that should just be easy for me to convince you that you want to be able to do. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Valentine's Day, they're all the same thing. Do I think the traditions surrounding holidays are kind of silly? Yeah, I do. I do. The first musical I was ever in was Fiddler on the Roof. Wasn't that the whole point that like traditions are important for community, but also some traditions hold us back or can learn to evolve? Like, wasn't that the whole point of that show? Like, I don't understand where we come from here. And yeah, Thanksgiving is a nice meal sandwiched between a genocide. And yeah, I also worked at a restaurant on Valentine's Day for one Valentine's Day. And I remember being 22 years old and saying, I really hate that it is my job to facilitate other people falling in love tonight rather than myself. And she made a similar tweet. They're like, "Can you believe she said this about Valentine's Day?" Yes, I can, because I've quite literally said the exact same thing, and it's really not that questionable of a statement. What it says to me is anybody who's mad about that has never worked in a restaurant. I see Allie saying the only holiday I like is Halloween. I agree, and I really don't even partake anymore. I just like the principles of Halloween. But like the idea that this is even a scandal is a laughable assertion because, again, the candidate is voting for blowing up school children, making life more unaffordable, something about trans people and Mexicans. Like, you know what I mean? Like, what are we talking about here? The idea that any of these candidates, assuming that the party coalesces around whatever candidate comes out of Tuesday, is going to struggle against Tom Tiffany is a laughable assertion to me. And the only way it is close is if kneecapping starts to happen. And I'm here to tell you right now, we are far enough along in the primary season that I've seen enough. If David Crowley comes out of this, and no offense to Kelda Royce, but I believe her campaign is done. Like, even if she dropped out, I wouldn't be doing like, oh, this is a conspiracy kind of segment because statistically speaking, I would understand why she would drop out at this point. So if a more moderate candidate comes out of this primary, I'm going to vote for him or her. I'll tell you that right now. And I would hope that centrists would be able to say the exact same thing. So we're seeing this conversation go back and forth. Excuse me. We're watching people, in my opinion, misrepresent the more popular candidate. I do believe if I were gambling on this, which I can't stress enough, if you are betting, you cannot, what's up, Eric? You cannot bet on this election if you are voting. But if I were gambling on this election, I would tell you that Francesca Hong is going to come out of this. I have a fairly strong feeling that that's how this ultimately plays out. Could be wrong. I've been wrong before, but I do think that's where this is ultimately headed. But allow me to show you guys something here. And if you follow me on any of my socials, you've probably already seen this picture. Um, but the obvious unifying factor between Democrats and Republicans right now is going to be the data center conversation. I don't think that's a bold declarative statement. I think it's made itself pretty clear over the last however long, couple of months, that data centers bring people together. Allow me to share my screen with you, and hopefully this doesn't. Let me minimize that and that. There we go. Okay, so let me just make sure that it's shared appropriately here because this is okay. Cool. So this is, oh, son of a gun, that's not the right one. All right. In any event, that's at least a smaller version of it. So, God, I don't know how to fix it. All right, you know what? It doesn't matter. You can kind of tell in that picture. If you haven't seen it, there was a meeting in Wapaka surrounding data centers at 9 a.m. And the fire marshal had to shut it down because it got so crowded at 9 a.m. on a Thursday, speaking out against data centers, that They said, you know what? We're going to have to reschedule this for another time. So people called off from work. They set up plans to have their kids watched. They fill in the blanks, right? They had to make all of these different adjustments to make sure that they were available at 9 a.m. on a Thursday to let their people know that they are not interested in these buildings going up. In Wapaka, just so we're all on the same page, in 2024, they voted 19,000 to 10,000 for Tony Weed. They voted 19,000 to 10,000 for Eric Hovde. And they voted 20,000 to 9,000 for Donald Trump because Kamala Harris was a distinctly bad candidate in 2024. Clearly a conservative area. They showed up in such a large percentage, such large numbers of people, that they had to reschedule a meeting because it was about data centers going up in secret versus having public opinion. There is one candidate. Now, don't get me wrong. Other candidates are trying to jump on board with the data center thing now, and I'm here for it. I am never going to be against people changing their platforms to adjust to what's popular. But very clearly, one person has been at the forefront of this data center conversation that clearly pisses off Republicans based on the voting dynamics of what Wapaka is versus the number of people that showed up there to speak out about it, and will inevitably show up to the other meeting that I promise you I will be keeping my finger on the pulse of to let you guys know when it is. Clearly, there is one path here towards somebody that is willing to bridge that gap. And Tony Evers would rather go on camera. In my opinion, this is a very embarrassing ending to a pretty impressive tenure of doing some good things here in Wisconsin. He would rather go on the record and say random tweets from 2019 about Thanksgiving are so damning that she'll never be able to bounce back. Meanwhile, the very obvious unifying factor in America in 2026 is in opposition to data centers, and everybody is acting like it does not matter. And I firmly believe it's because 7 of 10 of the largest grossing companies in Wisconsin are construction companies. And the reason they are on pace to make so much money is because so many data centers are slated to be built. And so they want to pretend like it's all these other reasons why they don't like them. Just like there was all these other reasons why they hated El Sayed, all these other reasons why they hated Mamdani, Plattner, although some of those were borne out to be accurate. But the point still withstands, all the way to the point where the failing New York Times has an article out right now. I talked about it with the listeners during Ben After Dark yesterday. And I'm sorry the light keeps changing. Some of my backgrounds are black, some of them are white, and I don't have my ring light up. So I apologize for the changing in lights here. It's a fuck it Friday, you know? Failing New York Times, moderate Democrats prepare for war against an ascendant left. Prepare for war because they're anti-data center and want to tax billionaires. One moderate group says the progressive winds are deeply troubling and is planning a $15 million effort against democratic socialism. Now, in the grand scheme of politics, $15 million is not that much, but it's the principle of the matter. It is the fact that so many different companies are willing to do the exact same thing. Or organizations, I should say, would be willing to do the exact same thing, all because candidates that actually represent the wills of the people are starting to accidentally win elections. For the first time in my adult life, the people that stand with the people are winning elections. I'm here for it. How about everybody else? Hold on. I'm going to share a link really quickly for anybody else that wants to join, and then I'm going to read some YouTube comments. Anybody who wants to have their voice heard, there we go. I have the right speakers set up. I see Old Lib made a joke. Missed Ben After Dark. Went to our union meeting. Sometimes I need to go and remind the younger members that their wages and benefits are from the sacrifices and work of boomers. There we go, Old Lib. I dig it. I dig it. Again, hashtag not all boomers. You're one of the good ones, you know? It's like, I feel like with progressives, you know how like random immigrants like will adopt a bunch of conservative policies and be like, see? See? And you know, like deep down, like the second conservatives have control, they'll be thrilled the moment ICE deports that person. I feel like this is the same thing now, and now I feel bad. I don't mean to harangue boomers as much as I do, but also you guys did kind of fuck a lot of stuff up. So like there's a give and take with that for sure. I see Brian enjoyed that. Carla says you're my favorite. Um, Progressives bending the knee to their party overlords are why we have a clown in the White House. Vote blue no matter who is only okay for token machine candidates. And yes, that's a scary term to use given who the establishment candidate is in Wisconsin, but you're not wrong. And those are the only times that vote blue, like you're seeing it enacted. And again, I said it to you guys last night. Um it I think I'm going to snap before November because it's so obvious to me how much um, the mainstream media hates that progressives are winning. They're doing it through gritted teeth. They're not saying all the things, but it's the subtle shit. It's the things that I used to get called a conspiracy theorist for in 2023. I would say you would turn on CNN in 2020 during the Democratic primary, and there were like 24 people running, and they'd have all their heads up on a big screen like it was the Brady Bunch. And then the news anchor would walk into the center and stand directly in front of Bernie Sanders' face so it blocked out his face. And if it happened one time, I'd be like, well, they had to stand somewhere, but maybe they could have stood off to the side. But it would happen over and over and over again. Even looking at El Sayed winning in Michigan on Tuesday, Jake Tapper was talking about the outcome later, and I haven't seen this anywhere else online. It's just something that I noticed. He was talking about the outcome, and he says, maybe it would have went Haley Stevens' way if the other candidate had dropped out. He says there was a third candidate in the race, but I don't remember her name. It was Mallory McMorrow. During the Democratic National Convention in 2024, she showed up with a binder this thick about Project 2025 and telling you how important it was to vote for Kamala Harris to stop Project 2025 from happening. She was one of the liberal darlings of the Democratic Party, but she refused to get out of the election early enough. Her name was still on the ballot. And so Jake Tapper, a millionaire, a national newsman, said, yeah, whatever that person's name was that was also on the ballot in the Michigan primary. It's those kind of comments that, while not directly antagonistic, I think very obviously highlight a lot of issues with the way our mainstream media talks about Democratic politics, and more specifically, how they react anytime one of their establishment types loses. Eric says, I can't wait for Boomer's reaction when Hong wins. The Boomers in this chat, though, would be on board with it, but I do get you. Grand scheme of things, absolutely. Wisco Girl says, Wapaka is beautiful, and the chain of lakes is their bread and butter. I'm glad they showed up in droves. Me too, and I hope it keeps happening. Justin, OG Justin says, listen to Wisconsin governor debates. Didn't find anyone impressive, but some things aligned. Didn't tackle hot issues like gun control and skimmed ice. If you know local events hosting them, I'm interested. I think that type of shit's done for this primary, to be frank. Um, Ken says, I'm having trouble finding info on how Wisdoms have doled out their money between the candidates thus far. I honestly haven't looked into it either. Chris says, I'm a tail end boomer with a 35-year-old attitude. There we go. I'm a middle millennial with a 25-year-old's attitude. Susan says, boomer shaming. More, please. Nah, I'm done. I'm done. I promise. What's up, Nataki? But I feel that. Amy says they're doing the same thing with Kelda as well. Same thing. Well, I mean, honestly, I'll be honest with you, Amy. I think they're acting like Kelda doesn't even exist. To be frank, I think I know you're a big time supporter of her, and I do like a lot of her policies. I just think she couldn't find a lane in this election. She's not progressive enough for progressives. She's not centrist enough for centrists. Um, You know what I mean? There was somebody else filling every possible lane that she could have possibly jumped into, and like she just for whatever reason she struggled gaining the kind of momentum that I think a lot of people expected her to be able to gain. Realize I don't have my Facebook people up here either, so I'm going to bring them up too. Effectively have dropped an invisibility cloak over her. Oh, lost it. I can't check my texts on my phone here. Bear with me 1 second, Amy, and I'll check it. Effectively have dropped an invisibility cloak over her, and Royce BTW has the most concrete data center plans, not just a moratorium pause. The problem is, Amy, is that she jumped on the data center bandwagon. She didn't start off there. She does have a nice plan, and she talked about it on my show. You can go ahead and check out that interview from a couple of weeks ago. She does have a solid plan, but she didn't come up with it with enough time to get the messaging out there in a way that made her a strong enough candidate to be able to compete, especially at this page of the game. I was surprised that Tony Evers didn't endorse her, considering Crowley was out of the race. You know, like why not just endorse the person that has a little bit of momentum already? Like that was a pretty shitty thing to do, and I'd be upset if I were her personally. Like I like Kelda a lot as a politician, as a person. Um, like genuinely, I do. Uh, I'd be pissed off. I would be pissed off. I'm a Hong guy. I have been for a long time. I am a vintage Bernie bro. I've been called all the names. He's what brought me into politics. A mixture of Bernie and just like how the fuck is Donald Trump able to compete right now sentiment. But but like I when I see a Francesca Hong style candidate, I get excited. And I have a way of talking about it that sounds, I think, more acceptable to people that are more towards the center than I think a lot of people who talk about it. As I won't shut up about it, um, people called me a moderate all the way up until the day I was fired. Meanwhile, I'm a pretty staunch Francesca Hong supporter, and they call her a radical. So if I'm a moderate and I think Francesca Hong makes sense, then what does that make Francesca Hong? You know what I mean? Thank you for the follow, Stormin. I appreciate you very much for being here. Jay says, yeah, it's kind of a slap in the face. I agree. Doesn't answer text. Whatever. Whatever. Get out of here, gamer. Let's see what comments we have on the Facebook here, shall we? Kim says, so many different so-called progressive Democrats I am seeing are ripping Francesca apart. They are afraid of her about Thanksgiving, her old comments about defunding the police, etc., etc. You know what this boomer is afraid of? Old white men. They keep taking away rights. Not Fran. She wants to help out everyone on so many different levels. Kelda needs to run against Ron Johnson, is what Kim is saying. I think a lot of people will get behind that. But see, again, I think she's going to run into a Ben Wickler buzzsaw. I think that's where that's ultimately headed. And again, Kelda would very obviously get my vote over Ben Wickler. Like, no doubt about it. But the entire Democratic establishment will throw their weight behind Ben Wickler, and it's going to be another challenge. And I'll be excited to jump into that with you guys. What's that say? Ben's got a Bernie vibe, and it works. This is me and Bernie hanging out together right here. These are the here. Hold on, wait. Let me fix the. There we go. That's me, Bernie, and Jesus all hanging out. I think it's referred to as the Holy Trinity. Don't cancel me. Don't cancel me. Sometimes I let my stream of consciousness get the better of me. When I was on FCC airwaves, I was better at keeping control. Oh, Stormin, listening in Pittsburgh. What's up? I appreciate you being here. You're saying Tennessee's going blue, Ecuador? I'll believe it when I see it, but I'm here for it. Um, yeah, awesome. I'm glad you found the show, Stormin. Um, yeah, everybody's laughing right now in my comments. I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself, but the three of us are just standing there like this, and I couldn't help it. But yeah, I'm glad you found the place, man. I think you're gonna get fit in great here. But we're calling it how we see it. We'd go live 9 to 11, Monday through Friday, Central Time, that is. You got to have some, sir. You got to have some faith. Exactly. That's why it's in the. That's why it's in the background. Um, but I'm not rebounding from that comment. But so you watch the excitement. Oh wait, hold on. What did OG Michelle say? What That's the joke I was gonna make. Lorelai was the Holy Trinity. I got halfway through it and then I stopped. What's people's thought on Sanders not endorsing Hong? It kind of pisses me off. He's doing this whole "I'm not getting involved in governors" races shtick, but like to me that sounds like Cory Booker saying that he's not going to endorse candidates outside of New Jersey, and then immediately endorsing the candidate that was running against Chris Rabb in Philadelphia because he secretly just didn't want to endorse the leftist. And like I don't know why Bernie did that, but it pisses me off. And like that's the beautiful part about being progressive is even though Bernie is essentially the Donald Trump of the progressive left in this country, we have no problems telling you when Bernie pisses us off, unlike a certain demographic of people. Sarah says, I've met Fran several times. She's very genuine and I believe she represents the people. So many of us are tired of status quo and want something different. Here's what I'll say about my interactions with Fran. And like I realize how this is going to sound. And I, by no stretch of the imagination, my line about doing talk radio, a lot of people who do my job refer to themselves as celebrities. And I would always laugh at them in their face. And I would say, you recognize if you go 15 miles away from the range of your radio station, nobody knows who the hell you are. Now, my audience has reached a little bit further out than Northeast Wisconsin, but I totally recognize that by and large, nobody knows who the hell I am, and that's absolutely acceptable. I met Fran one time at a Democratic event where I was the keynote speaker, invited her to be on the show, and she came on and we did a 20-minute interview. Since then, we have run into each other 4 or 5 times, and every single time, including one time, and I talked to you guys about it, I was at a Fran event in Manitowoc. There were probably 70 or 80 people there. She walked up on stage, immediately noticed me in the crowd, and went, Ben, so happy you made the drive out here to be here. I appreciate you. I was in a press junket on Sunday at the Fran event in Milwaukee. WISN is there. Media companies from all over Milwaukee are there, and she sees me there holding up my cell phone, recording it, getting ready to ask a question, points me out, waves, and says hello. Whatever you want to say about that, she knows how to play the game. I've also interviewed Tony Evers, and I went up to talk to him at the David Crowley event on Monday. He had no idea. He had absolutely no idea. And I realize politicians meet a lot of people, but there is something to be said, much like Sarah's experience, about feeling recognized, feeling listened to, and understanding that a candidate is actually engaging with you when they engage with you. And I just don't think that's particularly common amongst a lot of politicians. It sticks out to me when that kind of stuff happens. Carla says I'm a memorable guy. I disagree. I think I just, perks of being a wallflower or whatever. I can't find fault with Tony Evers as he has to toe the DNC line. At least he got the gerrymandering of the districts more in line. The 6th district may finally be able to get rid of Glenn Grothman. No, I feel what you're saying, Brian. And again, by and large, I think it was a very good tenure for Tony Evers. I'm just saying I it's a shitty way for his tenure to come to an end. It's like the opposite of John McCain. John McCain's voting record kind of made him a piece of shit most of the time. But at the end of his career, he's like, nah, make sure people with pre existing conditions still get access to health care. And like most people look at McCain now and they're like, that guy was all right. Tony Evers is going in the opposite direction. There's going to be a lot of people, specifically progressives, that even though a lot of things he did were positive, they're going to cling to this moment because it's the last thing that happened. Especially if he does not fall in line if she wins. If she wins and he's like, you know what, I might just leave the top of the ticket blank. There's going to be some blowback to that. And it's a very embarrassing way to end things. Carla says she remembered me too, and I was floored. I met her once and had some other not in person interactions with her. Exactly. Jay says that's awesome. I feel like that's part of the grassroots movement too. It is. It absolutely is. And Amy, I saw your text. I promise I will get back to it. Now I have to get the My Pillow guy to sponsor me. Yeah, I feel that. Um, Drew says it's vote blue no matter who, not endorse blue no matter who. Socialists hate liberals, refuse to endorse Kamala. They get the same treatment. Here's the difference, Drew. The reason the uncommitted act or movement existed had specific reasons. I was pissed off that she would not say anything about Lena Khan and the FTC and her intention to crack down, continuing one of the best parts of the Biden administration surrounding mergers, because Reid Hoffman, the founder of LinkedIn and mentioned over 1,300 times on the Epstein list, threw her millions of dollars and said, I want Lena Khan gone, because she was actually breaking up the mergers that so many of us wanted to see broken up. Plenty of people around this nation wanted to see her embrace some kind of pushback against what Israel was doing to the people of Gaza, and she refused to do it in any kind of meaningful way. What you're bent out of shape about is there were millions of people around the country that said, earn my vote. Kamala Harris said, fuck you, and decided not to do that. And so they decided not to show up and vote. What do you want to see Francesca Hong embrace that she is not embracing that would convince you to vote for her? That's the difference between a liberal and a progressive. I actually care about the policy. So explain to me what the policy is that you feel like you are not getting out of Francesca Hong that made you kind of take this antagonistic approach to talking to me here right now. Because fundamentally, Kamala Harris was told, do X, Y, and Z, and you will have my vote. I was the canary in the coal mine in 2022, 2023, and 2024 saying, if the Democratic message on the economy is Bidenomics is working and inflation is transitory, they're going to get their asses beat in November. And sure enough, minus a 2-week period where Kamala Harris had the ovaries to say, corporate greed is what's holding you back. Then the billionaires got involved. Enter Mark Cuban, enter Reid Hoffman, enter Liz Cheney. All of a sudden, she lost that. What is the thing that Francesca Hong is running on that is making her so unappealing to you, or wouldn't make you embrace her on the other side of the primary were she to come out on Tuesday? Kathleen says this is another boomer who voted for Fran yesterday. So did Mr. Boomer. Wonderful. Good morning, El Joe. Thank you for being here. Always glad to see it. I am a celebrity. You're right, Jarmani. Up in northern Minnesota, California here. Right on, right on. Yeah, we got people all over. We got people in Kansas. We got people in Pittsburgh. We got people in Maine. We got people. When I was on the radio, the show was downloaded in 49 states. I can see why they didn't want me there anymore. Just, I'm never going to drop it. I will never stop throwing shade about it. Doesn't matter how successful I'll get. I will still be petty until I die. Um, Justin says that's also what I read on Wisconsin Reddit. Hong is surging because of her wide engagement. Absolutely. Tony Evers was a pretty okay governor until last week. CKK says, I agree. He couldn't do a lot. He was hamstrung, but he was a good goalie. Absolutely. Absolutely, he was a good goalie. Trees are cold thinks, I think this shows exactly who he has been. He just also did some good things, and this version of him aligns with the one that supported the last Republican budget bill thing. You might be onto something there, Trees. Kamala just sucked. She pandered to conservatives. That's just motivating for anyone in her own party. That's not motivating for anyone in her own party. I voted for her, but she sucked. Me too. Not only did I vote for her, Trees, I lost sleep over it, because after she took the ass whooping that she got, I was like, I can't believe I voted for somebody that was going to continue to perpetuate the violence in the Middle East and not address my economic concerns just because I was scared of the orange man. Thank you for being here, Oregon. Only senior radio. Yeah, no, I got fired, Steven, because I was too good at the job, you know? But I appreciate you being here nevertheless, and same to you as well, Heels. Thank you for being here. Thank you for the follow, Steven. You're wonderful. Russ Feingold was the same way. I only met him once at a meeting. Several months later, I met him again, and he remembered me. Absolutely. Absolutely. And like, even I pride myself on my memory. I met Chris Armstrong at the event where Francesca Hong met me. And Chris Armstrong, who was a guest on my show about a month ago, calls me. He says, hey, Ben, this is Chris Armstrong. And I was like, I'm going to need you to give me more than that, man. And like I felt like an ass for that. But like so I, who meet infinitely less people than a person running for governor, was like, "Wait a minute, who are you?" And meanwhile, Fran remembers me everywhere we go. Nah, Steven, I'll beat you at this. You are wonderful. Don't you be trying to one up me here. I'm glad you're part of the crew. This is great. Subscribe to my YouTube page, please. Um, but yeah, I feel that. Brian says my union, LU577IBEW, has thrown their support for Crowley. Anyone ask about Act 10 for the Union Police, Fire, and 138? They supported Scott Walker. It sucks when you can't look past the now. Well, realistically, though, Brian, I understand why unions are throwing their weight behind Crowley because he's not anti data center. You know what I mean? That is going to be a boon for them long term. And I get it. You're supposed to vote for your own self interests to a certain extent. I view life, thank you, Anthony, who's listening out in Jersey. This is wonderful. I like everybody telling me where they're listening from. This is awesome that this is happening this way. But like, the way I approach voting is very counterintuitive because I have all the stuff that I need, right? I own it. I own an investment property. I have, monetary investments. I have my health. I have a lot of good things going my way. So when I am voting, I have the luxury of being able to look at this and be like, okay, what is the benefit to the greater good? But if I were working paycheck to paycheck, if, fill in the blank, whatever the situation is, I might be more inclined to ignore it. It's why so many white people that feel like they've been left behind by the system vote for Donald Trump, right? Because it would be really be shitty to acknowledge that like the system was designed for you to succeed and maybe you're still not succeeding and you don't want to embrace the fact that it might be as a result of your own decisions, right? It's weird. Adam says Appleton, Wisconsin in the house. Right on, my man. A lot of work for union peeps in data centers from Akala. I believe that. Lorelei says love unions, but they need to look beyond the next 4 years when endorsing. I would agree with that. I would agree with that pretty wholeheartedly. Let me get my text messages here. I saw Katrina texted me here. Bear with me here 1 second. 1 second here, guys. She's going to join at 10, actually, not 10:30. So we'll have Katrina DeVille on in 20 minutes. Should be a good conversation, and I need to get Rick on here as well. Rick Crossan, that is. Uh, bu- 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 bu. But yeah, why aren't you busy working, fellow 577 brother? Says CKK to Brian from Fremont. Brian, he doesn't want to work anymore. CKK is what the problem is. That's kind of always been his MO. I've been trying to get him to be a little more going at it. Christy Burke won her primary in Tennessee. Progressives pulling it in. You in Ecuador, you guys are on board with this new blue Tennessee. I'll believe it when I see it. And I know you introduced me to this woman, Elle, but I haven't had time to look into it. I'm going to jump into her over the weekend. But I'm fascinated by what this is, and I'm telling you, the saying history doesn't repeat, but it oftentimes rhymes. And I've been showing you guys the metrics of Bernie Sanders versus Hillary Clinton in Wisconsin in 2016, and Bernie beat Hillary by 140,000 votes. Meanwhile, Trump won Wisconsin in 2016. So it goes to show you what people were into. Bernie won Michigan in 2016 by 19,000 votes. El Sayed just won Michigan by 19,000 votes. Um, I believe progressives are going to do this, and I saw CKK had sent me an email about exactly that, about how Donald Trump won Wisconsin twice. Maybe Wisconsin isn't looking for middle of the road. Maybe they are looking for some kind of actual transcendent change. And when Democrats don't offer that, you're going to gravitate towards the person that does, even if that person doesn't have a large subset of ideas that'll actually work. I used to not defend tariffs, but I would express why I understood why people were on board with them. Because if the Democratic Party are telling you Bidenomics is working and nothing needs to change, And Donald Trump is telling you this economy sucks, the cost of living is far too high, and tariffs are going to bring prices down. Even if 98% of economists tell you that's wrong, even if there is historical data that shows you that that is never going to work out, if your options are the status quo or some kind of change that the experts are telling you won't work, a lot of people will gravitate towards the change. And Democrats either won't or don't want to learn that message. Sarah says, I canvassed for Bernie. The Republicans that I happened to run into said they'd vote for Bernie over Hillary or Trump. Absolutely. I'm telling you right now, if Democrats just would have got out of their own way, Trump wouldn't have even been a thing. But the phrase is true. I'm telling you right now, there is a subsect of the Democratic Party that would rather deal with Governor Tom Tiffany instead of Governor Hong. Because I think the Democrats winning the assembly is relatively show up and vote. Don't, take your foot off the gas. But the odds of the Democrats walking away with the assembly are pretty set in stone. So there will be people in this state, and I hate to say this out loud, there will be Democrat identifying people in this state. They're like, you know what? The assembly is going to block any kind of bullshit coming out of the governor's office, even if the Senate and the governor want it to happen. I think I'm just going to leave the top of the ticket blank because God forbid we have a progressive in office, because then shit might actually get done. It's it's a very frustrating possibility, but I don't think the way that a lot of people in politics have been acting has done enough to convince me that they won't behave that way in that world. Just so you guys know, Todd Pingle just sent me an email saying that he's going to be on his yacht this weekend. This is what I deal with while I'm trying to talk to you guys. I like Kelda. I think she is the most prepared to govern and gets things done. Don't think any Democratic candidates will be bad for the state, voting for whoever comes out of the primary. I mean, that's the right attitude. And I know you are, Old Lib. I know everybody listening to this show absolutely will. Like, you know what I mean? I am not like subtly calling out anybody listening to this show. I'm just saying. I did want to get to Amy's text, though. And I ran into Amy. Amy's affiliated with the Fox Valley Advocates for Public Education. She was one of the first guests I had on my radio program. She's a good friend of mine. She ran into me as soon as I walked into the vault on Monday, and she was like, "Let me buy you a drink." I was like, "Great, great, this is awesome." Yeah, I will do that. I will do that. Pixart doesn't exist, Todd, says Kristen. He has a yacht but feels the need to give all of his energy to you. Exactly. Hope a killer whale attacks that yacht, says Brambo. Charles says same. I like that like people who like don't regularly message are willing to message to shit on this guy. Like I enjoy this. As the audience for this show grows, like we're all the core of this audience. Eventually 1 million people will be listening to this show. I'm sure that's inevitably where this is headed. Um, but like this is the crew right now. Um, Truckin says, I'm not rich, but I'm glad I don't surround myself with suck up friends on a yacht. Yeah, absolutely. Grandma Mickey says, I hope he ends up on a 3-hour tour. Good reference. New merch idea. Todd on his yacht. I do not regret voting for Harris, Kay says. Out in Houston. That's another one. But the criticism of her is fair, and she shouldn't try again in 2028. She should try again, absolutely. But she will lose horribly, because she's going to have to actually run in a primary. What the Democratic establishment needs to do is just let a primary happen, is all they need to do. That's been my major point of contention. I feel like I've said it 10 times this week. And again, I'm going to sound like a broken record at times because I'm getting so pissed off at the mainstream media and at Wisconsin politicians that are not embracing the obvious will of the people right now. And it's like, you screw with Bernie in 16, you screw with Bernie in 20, then you realize that the fomenting for a progressive Democrat was so strong in 2024 that you'd rather block the primary entirely. Again, I just used, would I vote for Kamala over Newsom? I don't know. That's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, as far as I'm concerned. I used the Jake Tapper example for getting Mallory McMorrow's name as an example about a half an hour ago. The same thing happened during the Democratic primary in 2024. Marianne Williamson, who was a guest on my show, who did not get invited on mainstream media. Cenk Uygur, who was a guest on my show, who was not invited to speak on mainstream media, were both running in the primary. And Rachel Maddow, the most popular centrist commentator in America, shows up and says, "Yeah, there were some people running for against Joe Biden, but realistically, I don't even remember their names." You're paid tens of millions of dollars to work 1 day a week, and you don't remember the name of the people that were running against the president of the United States because you guys blocked any kind of meaningful challenge and refused to even platform the people that had the balls and ovaries to actually stand up and run against him. You obviously didn't want anything to happen, and it's because there was a progressive fomenting. Marianne Williamson, it was in December of 2023 that she was on my program. You can look it up on Spotify. She talks about her second Bill of Rights and the guarantee to housing and the guarantee for food and the guarantee for a good job. And my dad, who is by no means a Democrat, listened to that interview, and she said, and he says, "I find it hard to believe that that woman was a Democrat because I can't find anything that I disagreed with her in that comment, and it's because she was running as a progressive." And then even when they forced Kamala Harris to the top of the ticket, we had to show up in full force to get Tim Walz added as the vice president because he's actually a progressive. And the second they added him to the ticket, they completely neutered him and didn't allow him to say and do the things that made him the popular person that he was within the progressive left. There has been a concerted effort that the Democratic Party knows this is the way the party is going, and they have pulled out all the stops over the part of the last 10 years to the tune of allowing Donald Trump to win 2 out of 3 times. They thought the fear of what Donald Trump represents would be enough to get people out there and vote for them, and they lost to an orange carnival barker with no ideas 2 out of 3 times because they'd rather go that route than actually put somebody in there that means business. Mickey, did you mean to click the button there? I'm happy to have you on here. You never actually used your voice on here, but if it was an accident, just tell me and I can take you off. What's on your mind? Yep, I think it was an accident. That's fine. Don't even worry about it. I'm going to kick you off there. You're good to go. What would I do without the blue wave? Go back to ripping off. Move. Oh, you're doing the Joker. Yeah, exactly. Herb says, "I'm Elmer J. Fudd, millionaire. I own a mansion and a yacht." Oh, yeah. Yeah. Um, she should have remembered Jank. He used to be on MSNBC. Exactly. He lasted for 6 months. And you know why he got fired? Because he wasn't playing softball with Democrats. And they were like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, what do you think this is? Journalism?" Blue Dragon says, "The current wishy-washy, no-fight establishment's dem time is over. They just don't know it yet." No, they've known for the last 10 years, but they control enough of the levers of power to try and to maintain it as long as they can. It's the same reason why the new first place that the primary is coming from now is South Carolina rather than New Hampshire or Iowa. Why? Because New Hampshire and Iowa currently have AOC at the top of their list, and South Carolina is a deep red district that is not going to have any bearing on Democratic politics whatsoever. They are never going to vote for the Democrat. But you know what they do have? They have James Clyburn. And what they do is, and this is the Democratic establishment's main move, and you got to be comfortable being called names when you're having these kind of conversations. They will label people like me as racist because they will say, "Oh, yeah, you want Iowa and New Hampshire because there's no black representation there." You know what? You're absolutely right. Then let's make it New York, because the idea that South Carolina is somehow more representative of a population that should determine who the Democrats are putting in front of them is absolute horseshit. The reason why they want that is because the Democrats in South Carolina trend towards the moderate candidate, and they are trying to be able to hold that up for some reason to convince people that because South Carolina voted a certain way, this is the way that everybody should be willing to vote. And I'm here to tell, and I will say, that strategy will work on a certain demographic of people of a certain age group. Not going to say what age that is, but let's just say It's my dad's age. But in any event, that's their next move. And it's not as strong of a lever. They know people are paying attention. They know people have their head on a swivel. I'm sitting here watching mainstream media just stewing most of the time. And it drives me nuts. By the way, I looked up Amy's text because I see another person bringing up Bernie not endorsing Francesca Hong. Um, Amy says, I checked candidate who Bernie endorsed. He does not endorse gubernatorials. You can see from his endorsement page. So it seems as though he does have a track record for not caring about who comes out of governor's races and is much more focused on the Senate and the House. That's a choice. I disagree with it, but it's a choice. Um, I feel that. IBW in the house, says Old Liv. Yeah, hell yeah, man. And California's behind me, says Susan. I appreciate that very much. What are you punching here, Vi? It looks like you punched and it just exploded. Is that Jim Clyburn? Is that what you're punching right there? Well, I'm telling you, they're still going to pull this nonsense. It's not going away, and it's going to be contingent on all of us to not only not fall for it, but to actively speak out against it and highlight it for other people to be able to acknowledge. I can't tell you how many people have come up to me throughout my entire tenure, but realistically, specifically after I got fired, they'll be like, Ben, I can't express to you how much you have opened my eyes to the way politics and media are intertwined and the way it works and the games that they are playing right in front of my face. I am by no means the only person doing it, but I do think I'm uniquely suited to be able to see the way a lot of this kind of stuff works. Brian says, I guess 47 years was enough for me. Very happy that I got involved at a young age, work with the IBEW, and I'll be grateful for my ability to retire comfortably. Hell yeah, man. I respect the hell out of that. I was joking about the nobody wants to work anymore thing. I just can't help razzing you sometimes because quite frankly, I know you can take it, which is why I do it, and I expect you to give it back. I would say the real question with Bernie would be, will he come and help Fran win in November? That is a good question. Van says progressives should be endorsing progressives in every race. I agree with that. I would 100% agree with that. Welcome, Charles. I recognize that last name. I'm glad you're here. Thank you very much. Let me check my Facebook messages. I am expecting Katrina DeVille to join the conversation at any moment here and talk about what she's got going on. Oh, we got a shit ton of comments here. All right, let's see what we got. Kelda needs to run against Ron Johnson. Yeah, the David Crowley thing I don't understand. I know so many boomers that are voting for her. Flat out makes issues about race, abortion, defund ICE, etc. Ben, I don't know what you're. Who's running on abortion in 2026, Ben? You can't call yourself a libertarian and demand women can't get abortions, Ben. I'm going to need you to grow out of that mindset. Um, um, Kim says Crowley needs to say he will do away with voucher schools. I don't understand how Governor Evers is okay with that. Kim says, I definitely will get behind whoever wins the primary on Tuesday. I do not want Tom Tiffany or what they are calling him, state dad, as governor. No. They're doing that because they're trying to paint a picture that he is not in any way affiliated with Donald Trump. Like, that's Democrats. Democrats. I know some of you are listening to this right now. For the love of Christ, please start tying Donald Trump to Tom Tiffany. You know what? Let's just do this really quickly while we're waiting for Katrina to join. This is the first ad that has come out for the El Sayed campaign against Mike Rogers now that they're no longer in primary season. Just bear with me for a minute while I set everything up here. But I like, this is what the Democrats in Wisconsin have to be doing, because if you do this, you will come away with a victory, because they're going to make this about transgender athletes. They're going to make this about Thanksgiving tweets. They're going to make this about so much dumb shit. And hold on, I'm even going to set the people up on TikTok here. Hopefully over the weekend I'm going to see if I'm actually allowed to do the things I want to do here, but we'll see. For now, we're still going to do it this way. Listen to this ad that is playing currently in Michigan, and this, when they try and say Tom Tiffany is state dad, this is how you hit this.
There comes a time in life when things start to slow down, when you just don't have the same energy you had 20 years ago. But there's a way to bring some excitement back.
What has not helped is the fact that the United States hasn't strongly said that military intervention is still on the table.
Introducing Endless War from Mike Rogers.
Boy, it's really hard when you have to justify every minute of the war, I think, for the president.
With Endless War, you can feel like yourself again.
I think when people think about boots on the ground, they're thinking big maneuver elements, divisions, brigades, battalions. No one's talking about that, although I don't think we should eliminate it.
Side effects may include death, economic hardship, and global instability. Some patients have reported fuel shortages, which may cause inflation. Endless War has not been proven to make Americans any safer.
Ask your doctor if Endless War is right for you.
I should have given you guys a heads up that I was going to show you a dead body. I apologize for not giving you the trigger warning on that one there. But that, as Violated Elf says, what a great ad. Jay says ick. Mickey says yes. Van says LMAO, that's pretty good. I just got restricted on TikTok, probably for the dead body comment. Brilliantly produced. OMG, love it. Oh wow, that's amazing. Ha 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 ha. Everybody understands exactly why that's an effective ad, right? This is how you beat this. They're trying to say, oh my goodness, the Tom Tiffany, he's just a normal guy. This is what we got to return Wisconsin back to. Can you believe that this Korean woman doesn't like Thanksgiving? That's the way that they're trying to compete against this, and this is very easily beatable. It is so obviously beatable. It is just a matter of having your head out of your ass and not allowing centrist Dems to do the work of the Republicans. Who here has been seeing the clips of John Fetterman on Jon Stewart's new show? Jon Stewart remained respectful the whole time in a way that I absolutely have no capacity to do, and just bodied John Fetterman for an hour, saying you're doing the work of Republicans when you say that any progressive is pro Hamas. He goes, I'm pretty sure that you can have something meaningful to say about Israel without being pro Hamas. And John Fetterman gives some kind of garbled word salad that doesn't make any sense. Justin says Stewart made him look really dumb. I agree, but in a very respectful way. Like, I don't have that gene. It would have got aggressive with me. Yeah, I'm going to forward that idea to Fran, Mickey. Absolutely. Oh, Fetterman made himself look dumb. Yeah, I totally agree with that. But like the Democrats like Fetterman, like what Governor Evers is doing. And again, I don't want to shit on Governor Evers' legacy, but it is pissing me off. He's allowed to endorse Crowley. That's fine. It doesn't make any sense. It makes sense from a Crowley is a Milwaukee County executive, and I do think he is an impressive political creature. But he was out of the race and was never, and similar to Kamala Harris, really didn't mount any kind of momentum relative to what else was going on. Eventually, the phrase read the room has to be uttered to some of these people. And the idea that progressives are somehow not electable is becoming a dinosaur's attitude towards what the future of politics is. And I see my guest is popping in here now. Bear with me. I'm going to bring you up in 1 second, Katrina. We need new ideas. We need a capacity to not be afraid of what progressivism represents, because very clearly MAGA is not afraid of what MAGA represents. And if you can't realize that that is the case, I think you're actively choosing that you do not want to see that anymore then. And that's very frustrating for somebody who is required to talk about this with you guys every single day. Excuse me 1 second here. I want to bring my notes up for the conversation here. All right, without further ado, we are going to change topics here for a little bit. We spoke with Mark Scheffler on Wednesday. He is one of the three candidates currently running in the first Democratic primary in CD8 in 20 years. We will be speaking to Rick Crossan at the beginning of next week. Right now, we have the second candidate in this conversation here, and obviously, this will all be available on YouTube for anybody who's looking for it later. Katrina DeVille running for the 8th District. I've got the luxury of meeting her on Sunday, although we have been in the same room several times. People are always crowding around her, and I hate just standing around waiting for people. So I wanted to wait until we had a moment to really have a conversation. I'm bringing you up now, Katrina. Please do not be making any funny faces. Here we go. How are you today? How are things?
I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. I appreciate you for agreeing to come on the program on such short notice, but I haven't had internet for so long, as I was telling you, that it's been a cluster just trying to get as many candidates as I can before Tuesday. So I do want the listeners to know that I kind of dropped this in your lap last night, and you were more than willing to talk to the people of Outside the Box.
Oh yeah, I mean it's anytime I get a chance to talk to the people and share the ideas that I have and listen to folks, that it's an honor and a privilege. So
Yeah, love hearing that. So, I mean, I know a lot about your platform. You and I are going to be talking in circles here a little bit because there's a lot of good things that you're kind of throwing out there. But let's talk a little bit about why you're running in the first place. I know I learned a lot about you at the debate on Sunday, also available on the Outside the Box YouTube page for those of you that want to see some of the answers Katrina and others were given. Background in music, it kind of seems like this kind of path for you, though, kind of not came out of nowhere, but it almost felt like a calling at one point for you.
it did. I mean, I've I've made no I've made no sort of hiding about it. I'm a public facing trans woman, and it it puts me in a higher amount of detrimental danger to say things like that. But I think it's really important for people to see trans people out here in everyday life and understand that we're not some sort of like monster or something. I'm just like anybody else. I'm just, I want to see, you know, I want to live a happy life, and I want to be successful, and I want to see my friends and everybody that I come in contact be happy and successful. And that's what it really boils down to. But I struggled with the way I felt about myself and just the misalignment with my inner self to my outer self for 45 years. And when I finally decided to go in all the way with transitioning, it was about 2 months before Trump got reelected. And when he when he got reelected, I was like, well, this is going to go pretty badly, you know? And I was like, as it's gone on, I was like, I didn't think it was going to go this badly. Okay. You know, just, but I was like, I came out publicly on social media and everything like that on the 18th. I started transition on the 16th of September, 2024. And I came out publicly on the 18th of March, 2025. And I think I had 4,500 Facebook friends, and within like 2 days, I had deleted and blocked about 2,000, and that's just the way it goes.
Yeah.
But you know, now I have close to 7,000 Facebook friends, so it's like you open the cage of you open the bird cage, and if the bird comes back, that sort of thing. It's
Sure.
you let people just do what they're going to do, and if they can accept, then it's fine, and if they can't, then that's fine too. Folks are made to come in your life and leave when they have to, and some stay. So it's, you know, but
Well, you're in the right place to talk about this here because I mean, Medicare for all sounds the same out of anybody's mouth, and that's
yeah,
always my
it's
attitude here. As long as you're willing to endorse that kind of stuff, and you're hoping to try and accomplish that on the state level here, were you to come away with a victory.
oh yeah. I mean, it would be federal, you know. So
Yeah, sure, yeah,
it's uh, when I came out, they started, you know, doing all this anti-trans legislation against us at the federal level and at the state level, and combined from sea to shining sea over the course of the last year, there's been over 1,100 pieces of anti-trans legislation. So like more than one a day. And at any point over the last year, there's more anti-trans women in sports bills than there are actually trans women in sports, which is so ridiculous, but it's such a nothing burger of a problem. But I kept turning around, looking over my shoulder, waiting for some kind of like Lone Ranger to
Sure.
come swooping in. Like he said, anybody got to come stop this business? And, you know, it was like nothing. And after a while, I was just like, nobody's coming. Nobody's like, you have to get up and do it yourself. Nobody's coming.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, I started to think about it, and a couple of friends of mine saw me speaking up online quite a bit because I've had a pretty large music platform, and I've had you know, a lot of fans because of the music business. And friends of mine said you should consider running for Congress because you speak a big game and it's really good. And like, I really thought about it. I talked to my dad about it, and he was like, well, you know, if you do this, the way I've done it is the way I would want to do it. And I knew that going in like I have, I would burn everything of my previous life to the ground. And that's kind of how it's gone. But it's like, I mean it. I'm here because I mean it with my whole heart, my whole soul. And something I think that really sets me aside from any other candidate in this race is I'm like, they're threatening to take our health care away. And it's only failed to be taken away by 1 or 2 votes. It's been like right at the waterline, right at our noses. So like, I'm literally fighting for my life. And I'm also fighting for everybody's life, because if they're willing to take away my rights as an American citizen, they're going to take away anybody's rights. Like, we are the canary in the coal mine, and it starts with us. And I won't sit by and watch it happen anymore. I'm seeing friends of mine, trans and cis, doesn't matter if they're LGBTQ community or in just like any Wisconsin community, people are really suffering right now where they can't afford, you know, food, they can't afford healthcare, they can't afford childcare, living wages aren't enough. And it's just, I started to really think about it. I was like, I don't need to reinvent the wheel. I've loved Bernie Sanders for 30 years, and I voted for him twice. And I was like, I looked at all of his policies, and I'm like, I know all of his policies. And I was like, that's my whole thing right there. And
Yeah.
I've told folks, like, you know, you want to know the short explanation of me? I'm the trans version of Bernie Sanders. And it
Love
was
that.
it was really funny. I haven't watched any of his videos in a couple of months now because I've really just dug in on my own heart and putting things out from a genuine place of wanting to be true to myself. And I went back and watched the video that he put out 2 nights ago when El Said won in Michigan. And I was like, I was laughing the whole time because I'm like, there was things he was saying that I'd never heard him say before. And I thought I'd come out with these things. It was just hilarious. I'm like getting insurance companies out of the healthcare system. And there he is on TV saying, I'm like, I was
Yeah.
like,
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's kind of the whole theme. It's what I say about outside the box. People thought I was a moderate for most of my existence because a lot of progressive ideas sound so common sense when you take away the fear mongering that comes from mainstream media. So, like, let's look at one of those ideas that not that even today might seem crazy to some people, but you turn on more liberal conversations around the scene surrounding minimum wage, and it's always, we got to get it to $15, we got to get it to $15 an hour in 2026 is $31,200 a year before taxes. You tell me where you're getting on $15 an hour right now. You have a different idea of what the minimum wage would look like.
I do. And my idea is it's based on MIT Living Wage Calculator is what it is. So anybody that wants to check it out, it's free. The MIT Living Wage Calculator. All you have to do is go to Google and type in that exact thing, MIT Living Wage Calculator. And what it does is it breaks down the entire country by state. So you can pick any of the 50 states, and then within the states, it breaks it down into counties and metropolitan areas. And you can pick one of the larger cities. So like Wisconsin, you can pick Milwaukee, Madison, Green Bay, Appleton, like all of these places. But if there's no large city in the county that you're particularly interested in, you can pick the county and it'll tell you the information for the county. And then what it does is it tells you how much you are required to make per hour to live there. And that's not saving any money for college for your kids. That's not saving any money for vacation. That's not having any money left over extra in case your TV blows up and you need a new TV. It's like just squeaking by. Water line is right under your nose. And a lot of people have said that when MIT did that living wage calculator, it's probably erring on the side of being low because they don't figure in for any of those things, life emergencies, whatever, your kid falls off the slide and breaks his leg, that sort of thing. Last time I checked, it was $21.52 an hour that was required to live in Green Bay. So, and Appleton was like $21.68 an hour is what you're required to make an hour to live in Appleton. And this was as a single person with no children, no pets. They give you 12 different family breakdowns on that website. So anyone can pretty much pick the family configuration that they currently have, and they will know what is required in a job to live there. So $22 an hour, I'm being like 30 cents an hour generous, but it's not really like saying very much. Like someone asked me in a forum the other night if 22 was enough. And I was like, really? No, it's like, that's just squeaking by. And like, I get so much pushback from, right-wing people. It's just like, and the argument is like, for starters, nobody's taking jobs that are $7.25 an hour.
Right.
So, like the idea that we're not even going to do anything with that current minimum wage at all is absolutely upside down because it's so irrelevant. It's laughable, and that's supposed to be the bare minimum of what people are allowed to pay, and that is a clear instance of the federal government not doing anything to help the worker.
You know what's crazy is because obviously coming from the talk radio sphere, I dealt with a lot of right wingers as well.
For
I
sure.
don't think you can find a 4-year period before 2009 where the minimum wage didn't go up. And we haven't increased the minimum wage since 2009. It's
For real.
almost 2027.
Mhm.
And like there were moments when it went up every year for years, for a half a decade in a row. It went up every year to kind of match what the standard of living was. I think I looked it up for the purposes of this show last week. 838,000 people nationwide still working at 725, but the number of people working at under $15 an hour is in the tens of millions. And if you're in North Dakota, sure. But I mean, most other places, I don't know where you're pulling this off. My apologies to anyone listening to North Dakota. I wasn't
Well, there's a story that I tell on some of my speeches, and it's true. I have a friend of mine who went and got a job at Walmart, and they went through the orientation and everything. And at the end of the orientation, the person directing them said, "Now that computer that's sitting next to you, I want you to turn it on, and I'm going to show you how to access the SNAP website because you're going to need government food assistance because you have a job here."
Mm-hmm.
And it's like we're allowing these large corporations to pay people less, and then they have to go on government assistance. They have to. There's no way to survive without it. So if you look at what's going on here, we are, as the taxpayers, subsidizing Walmart and Home Depot and Amazon to keep more money and pay their workers less.
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, it's corporate welfare, right? They claim
It
they
is.
hate welfare, and then here we are. I have a lot of people listening. I know you briefly mentioned Second Amendment rights there. You're a staunch advocate. Obviously, they're attacking your rights, and by they, I mean the Republican right. Anytime a transgender individual engages in like the 4 times it happens, it's like, well, this is enough for us to take away everything. And
Yeah.
you, however, are a staunch advocate for everybody's Second Amendment rights,
Yeah,
correct?
I mean, it's the Constitution. That's supposed to be relevant for everybody.
Yeah.
And I've actually taught. I've got a really good friend of mine who owns a ballistics company, and he's one of my longest friends, and he's taught a class through my campaign for concealed carry, and we've gotten 30 people certified through the campaign for concealed carry, and we've done it as a campaign fundraiser. So the fundraising has helped the campaign, but then like I don't think it's too far of a stretch for politicians to be out here campaigning and doing something that can actually add to the community at the same time. And my whole thought with it is giving people the means to defend themselves, and that's what it's done for me. Is I've I mean, I don't think there's a day that goes by I don't receive some sort of death threat, and it's when you have someone idle in your parking lot in the middle of the night and you don't know who it is, it gets you wanting to have a way to defend yourself.
And just to, like, first of all, that's incredibly depressing to hear. And why it's infuriating to hear is that you're sitting here talking to me about guns rights and cars. And we're about to jump into data centers here in a second. And I can tell the way you're wired on so many of these things. And by and large, if you take the identity out of the conversation, yeah, there we go. If you take the identity out of the conversation, I think there would be quite a few right wingers that would be into what you're saying, what your campaign is, and what you're pitching. And unfortunately, I think we will get past it. I think I have to no, I have to believe that, otherwise I'd go crazy. I think we will evolve out of this, but it's just a shame to hear the way you're talking and the kind of the reasons why you feel extra attached to the Second Amendment, I guess, relative to other people. Maybe looking at it more as a this is my hobby and I want to defend my hobby perspective. You have an entirely different attitude for some pretty shitty reasons.
I do, and but what's been great about it is as I've been involved in the gun community, I've gone to shooting ranges, and I've had town halls at these shooting ranges, and every one of these places I've gone into, Genesis Impact Sports on the north side of Appleton, and a Midwest Shooting Supply over by the mall, like they're great. I don't think I mean, I didn't expect to be treated how I was there, and they're excellent. All the guys that work at those places, when I walked in and like I was like, I'm running for Congress. Here's my card, and I'm a Democrat, and I'm here, and I'm a gun advocate, and they're just like, wow. Like, and the last range I went to was with another trans sister, and we ended up being the only ones there. And the guys working at the counter ended up coming in the range shooting with us, and we were all trading guns and like, I want to try yours. And it was just like, it was great.
Yeah.
Like, it's like we're just having fun and shooting targets. It's like I'm not trying to take your guns away. That's always been the narrative, and but what it's also made me understand is like the there's a ton of there's really relevant gun laws right now, and the whole idea that the left pushes of adding more laws is going to solve the problem of the mass shootings in this country, and that it's not. The thing about it is like criminals who will break the laws that exist right now aren't going to care if you add more laws. They're just going to break those ones too. So all you're going to do by adding more laws to them now is make it so it's more difficult for the law-abiding gun owner to actually be responsible and do it correctly. Because like the number of mass shootings in this country is out of control, and one is way too many. But if you compare the number of mass shootings to the number of gun owners in this country, there's millions of responsible gun owners in this country, and like most of the gun owners in this country do like they're supposed to. And like being in the gun community myself, I started to see it like this is really screwed up, because it feels like what the right does to trans people, like, oh, you're all evil. And it's like, now I'm a gun person, and the left is like, oh, you're all evil. And I'm like, this is so obtuse and weird, but it's like, like standing in the middle of the line of both sides going, what is wrong with both of you?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. We're speaking with Katrina DeVille, running in the 8th congressional district here in Northeast Wisconsin. Speaking of these ideas to kind of bridge gaps, I spent the better part of the first hour. I don't know if you've seen the pictures from the Wapaka zoning meeting yesterday. 9 a.m. during work hours, the fire marshal had to they had to reschedule the meeting because so many people showed up to speak out against data centers being built in Wapaka that went almost 2-1 Trump, Tony Weed, and Eric Hovde in 2024. This data center conversation is uniquely what's the word I should look uniting for the American people. You got Republicans and Democrats, and at the debate on Sunday, you were really the only one that was kind of coming out full throatedly against what was going on in the world of data centers. So, what's your philosophy there?
I think, I think that anytime we have these large, anytime we have these instances that will affect more than one county, more than one state, they'll like things like human rights, things like equality, things like these data centers affecting the community that's next door and the community that's next door to that, like the air pollution and the water pollution, like nobody knows what the levels are of these yet. You know, they haven't been studied. They haven't been around long enough, and they're not given time to have them studied. And the federal government hasn't been sending anyone to study them. Like I've dug in on this stuff and really researched it. And there's video of Elon Musk's latest data center, and with a regular camera, you don't see anything. And then they did thermal imaging video of it, and you can see like it looks like a flame plume coming out of the smokestack because it's all it's all chemical pollution coming out. He was actually fined for building an unauthorized power plant on the inside of that data center. Just
I'm sure it
gross.
was like an $11 fine because it's
Probably.
never,
Yeah,
yeah.
just here you go, Elon. Yeah, just slap on the hand. Right. It's. I think what should happen is there should be a moratorium put in place on them, and I don't know if a year is long enough because we have to give sufficient time to be able to study the ramifications of what's going to happen with these data centers. Because first time I talked about this, I went down to the state capitol in Madison in October. I was trying to get my feet wet into politics, and I went to lobby a couple bills for citizen action. This was before I was running for politics or anything. I just wanted to know how the process went. And one of the bills that I lobbied for was data centers. And I remember sitting there in the office and looking out the window in Madison, and it was fall, and seeing the trees and the leaves falling, and I started to cry because it's like they're just bulldozing this shit with nobody putting up any sort of brakes. And these communities, I can understand their point of view where they have no money because our screwed up Republican legislature in the state has locked all the funds away from these communities, and they've made it so they can't afford any of the infrastructure upgrades or upkeep that they need. So they see these data centers sweep in and they go, we'll take all that money because then we can fix our sewers and our streets and all these things. But like when you bulldoze the environment of this state, it's gone. And we don't get that back. And I want people to really look outside at how beautiful this state is and understand when they run it over with the bulldozer, you don't get that back. And that's why I am so pissed off about it. And that's why, like, I didn't know about that data center thing in Wapaka, or I would have been there. I've been going to as many of these as I can. I was at the one in Green Bay. Yeah, it's that is infuriating coming from, like, I was a 4-H kid. I used to do stuff in that environment all the time and push like it's we have to safeguard the environment of Wisconsin because once it's gone, it's gone. And I've been all around the country. This is one of the prettiest places I've ever been, and we should feel lucky and safeguard it.
Well, that's I've been to a lot of these flock cameras and data center meetings as well, and that's when I kind of intimated you and I have overlapped quite a bit, but I never really get a chance to interact with you because so many people come up and talk afterward, and like as a media member, I tend to defer to your potential constituents, allowing them their time to talk to you, and I'm like, I'll find her eventually, but but
For real.
but in any event, you were at the flock camera meeting in Appleton, I believe, 2 Wednesdays ago. At this point, maybe three. Was the last time you and I were both at an event, and you were talking about transgender athletes versus legislation. And the comment that I had yesterday was there are more police officers that have been caught stalking their girlfriends or ex-girlfriends with flock cameras than there are transgender athletes in America today. You have been pretty vocal on this. I obviously know your stance on flock cameras. I guess I'm more interested. Have you been going to these kind of meetings and staying involved in your community and trying to block this prior to your political career, or is this kind of because of a result of you being more engaged to the last year and a half or so?
I guess it's. I wasn't. I really got into a whole lot of partisan back and forth fighting with a lot of my friends during Trump version 1. And when Biden got elected, I couldn't take it anymore. Like I felt like my head was going to explode, and I kind of checked out for a while. Unfortunately, I needed a break from it, and I was just like, I can't anymore. And I dropped the rope, and I just retreated to a life of music and cars, because I've owned a custom car shop for 20 years, and um,
Oh no. Oh no, Katrina, can you hear me? Hmm. Oh? No? No? Okay. Okay. Katrina, we lost you. We lost sound, and I'm gonna post. Okay, she left. Maybe that same link will still work. We'll see if she can come back. I was about out of questions anyway. Um. But in any event, oh, there we go. There we go. There we go. Hold up. Hold up. There we go.
sorry
All
about
right,
that.
you're back. Yeah, no worries. So go ahead. We lost you there right about towards the or right when you said you dropped the rope. You'd kind of backed out of it for a little bit. You were getting
I
back into it.
I kind of backed out of it for a bit just to save my own peace of mind, and as I started showing up for everything else, I've shown up for for the data centers and the flat camera stuff. It's it's disgusting.
Yeah.
That's the best word for it. It's just like I I know that some city leaders really have good intentions when they put these things in place, but there's a whole lot more feeling of government mistrust and things like that. And I think it's really important as governments move forward on these things to show good faith to the community and get rid of them. I mean, as we're looking at police officers being brought to charges and things for stalking people I mean, from coast to coast. It's, and then there's a woman that I've become acquainted with who spoke up at the Oshkosh flock meeting, and she's actually been involved in government intelligence, and she said she's actually seen flock accounts being sold on black market in Russia, and it's like that's yeah, that doesn't feel so good.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
get that. And I agree with you. I've said that multiple times over. Oftentimes, it's never the like I don't trust the FBI, right? There's
yeah,
plenty of people in the FBI that join the FBI to catch criminals and do the right thing. It's
correct.
leadership that I do not trust. And it's not just a Cash Patel thing. I mean ever. As a progressive, I know the FBI has realistically never been our friend. It's the same idea with flock cameras. I do believe there's a lot of people out there that want to install these to find criminals. I
Yeah,
don't believe that's why they're getting installed. And that's kind of my main attitude towards it.
yep,
Um, uh,
same.
Yeah, we're just about out of time here, Katrina, but everyone knows I end all of my campaign interviews the exact same way. There's 5,000 different topics we could cover, and we only have a limited amount of time. What's one thing, whether it be about your campaign, about yourself, a policy that you would want to enact, whatever it is, the floor is yours. What's one thing you wish I brought up that you want the people listening to know before they go into the polling place on Tuesday?
We've been voting for the same kind of disingenuous, uncharismatic politicians for the entirety of my life. And if you look at politicians, they sound the same, they look the same, they have the same haircuts, they wear the same color suits, the whole, like, their websites look the same. There's a reason I look different. There's a reason my website looks different. It's because I'm not a career politician. I'm not chained to the way we've done things. And I'm not chained to the party telling me you have to do things this way. I've pissed off the party enough times in just this short span of my run to know that, like, I just have to go with my heart on things, and that's what the people of this state will get from me. And I'm going to stay in touch and in tune with the people of this state so I can keep hearing the things that they want. Like, if I'm not listening to them and getting their criticisms and getting their ideas and their thoughts and going forward with those, then I'm not being the representative that I should be. And, like, if we want different outcomes, we have to vote for somebody that's different and somebody that's not afraid to go against the grain and somebody that's not afraid to take some chances on some things that, when you look at the facts and the logic of it, these work better. You just have to have courage enough to do it.
Couldn't agree with that more. Katrina DeVille, Congressional District 8 here in Wisconsin. Thank you very much for joining us for a half hour here and sharing some of your beliefs on why you think you're the best candidate. Good luck on Tuesday, and if you come out, we'll have you back on for the. Even if you don't, we'll we'll find a reason to get you on here
Hell
again.
yeah,
So
I'd love to
thanks
come
for
back.
being here.
Hell yeah. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, all right. You take it easy.
You too. Talk
All right.
soon.
Yep. Bye. Um, yeah, and there we have it. Katrina DeVille and her thoughts on the matter. I welcome all of your guys' comments as well, as per usual. Let's keep it classy, though, San Francisco. I'll get you guys a new link here. Or San Diego is what I meant to say. That was an Anchorman reference. We all knew what I was going for. It's all right. But yeah, anybody who wants to share their thoughts. I like, honestly, in a lot of ways, I believe she's less polished than either of the other two candidates that are running, but I do think she has a lot of good ideas that are worth listening to, and more importantly, worth implementing. Um, a lot of things to kind of help propel the state forward, and more importantly, just drive a kind of unity that I think is a lot less prevalent than it used to be in this country. Hold on one second. I'm just checking to see comments over. I see a lot of people thanking Katrina for being here. I know my TikTok comments were popping off there. I apologize. There was no way for me to be able to keep up with that there. Um, let's see who we got here on the Book of Faces. Marianne Williamson is light years ahead of our systems. Our country was not ready for her. I would agree. This is a balanced approach to gun control, says Georgia. I agree there as well. Um, Corporate double dipping, 100% uncommitted. Yeah, so I mean, I have these comments from all over the grand scheme of things here, but nevertheless, I think it is worth highlighting that these are the kind of ideas you get when, no pun intended, you kind of take the outside the box approach to candidates rather than inside. Um, Obviously, her stance on data centers coalesces with mine pretty tremendously, and I'm sure a number of people listening here as well. There were a lot of things there that made quite a bit of sense to me, in a way that is actually frustrating that the other side really won't ever actually give a chance. Somebody commented on my TikTok video that I posted this morning and said Democrats' main problem is that they can't keep Trump out of their mouth, and a lot of us still support him. And like, I was genuine, and I haven't had time to go back and look and see if I got a response, but I simply just said, but why? You know? Like, why don't you want to listen to another option? And again, my video was about centrists versus, progressives, which was basically the theme of the entire first hour of this program today. But why do you still support him in 2026? Like, what is it? What is it? I mean, I understand some bigots are just going to be bigots when it comes to whether or not they would vote for Katrina or not. But in terms of policy, what about what you heard there is somehow more threatening than what has been taking place under the Trump administration for the last almost 2 years? And I think you'd be hard pressed to highlight something to like persuade me in the other direction, which I find very interesting. Sarah says we need to have the courage to vote different if we want different. I couldn't agree more. I can't tell you how many people, left, right, and center, would call into my show when I was on the radio and tell me the two-party system, it's a duopoly, two sides of the same coin, it's never going to get better, blah, 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 blah. And then Francesca Hong runs for governor, and they're like, I heard she hates white people, so I'm voting for Tom Tiffany. It's like, okay, so you are still stuck in the fucking loop. You are too scared to actually take a chance on something different, which, again, I said it yesterday, and I say it a lot. Conservatism is innately anti-change, right? Or even a reversion back to some kind of idealistic past that absolutely does not exist. But it's frustrating. It's frustrating that people can acknowledge that the two-party system is broken, but then don't have the guts to vote outside of what the two-party system represents. And for the record, Katrina's running as a Democrat, as is Mark, sort of. He kind of is more independent, as is Rick Crossan as well, who will be on the show later, I should say Monday, but maybe Tuesday. But um, they're all running as Democrats. I don't want to intimate it's not the same as what Francesca Hong is kind of representing, who, for the record, is also running as a Democrat. But it's the principles in policy, and you can tell when something different is happening. You can tell when there is somebody operating outside of a system that has failed us. And I wish that we had more people willing to stand up, speak their mind, and say these things. And I would say it on the radio, and I'll say it here now. I expect some of you listening to start running. Carla already took care of it, but I need more of you. I need more of you to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to continue running things from the cockpit here. But we need to be able to challenge the status quo. Otherwise, we're just going to continue circling the drain, and much to the chagrin of a lot of the neocons out there, allowing China to pass us up. I came across, there was a gentleman, Raul Dukey. Is that really it? Duke. I'm an idiot. I just ruined that guy's career, probably. I'm joking. Raul Duke, who put together a compilation about China that I found very interesting that I want to play for you guys. But Susan says, in much of California, the annual income that is required to rent is roughly $88,000 a year just to get approved by a landlord for a $2,200 apartment. Crazy. Absolutely. I remember, and this data is years old at this point, so it's probably even worse than this at this point. But in order to afford the standard two-bedroom apartment in California, and that's across the entire state, so that's an average of LA and then a bunch of northern parts of California that somebody who's never lived there probably couldn't begin to identify. Davison, I know I had a friend who lived in Davison, but the average that you needed for a two-bedroom apartment was $42 an hour in California, which is just like, that's for the apartment. That's not for utilities. It's not for having a car. It's not for any of the shit. That's for the apartment. You need to be getting $42 an hour. Now it's two bedroom. That could be between two people, but then everybody pitches a little hissy fit when McDonald's says we're going to up our minimum wage in California up to $20 an hour. Don't you know they're going to replace you with machines? Like, fuck out of here with that. Like, what are we talking about? Everybody hit that like button on this video. I've been told the likes are not nearly high enough. Everybody go like, and more importantly, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. But I do want to play this video because it goes to show you the way that we kind of get played in our faces here. And it ties into Katrina's ideas as well as a number of ideas that are out there that challenge the status quo. So bear with me for one moment here, as it always takes me a second to make sure I'm sharing the right thing here. Perfect.
The Yangtze River was so
No, not yet, buddy. Not yet, buddy. We're about to get there. I don't actually have the screen up. And unfortunately, I found out that the reason I got restricted on TikTok is because I actually put that video on screen and it said that I was using somebody else's content. So I'm not going to make that same mistake twice. So the rest of you guys are just going to have to listen for the time being. I do not know if that restriction's going to carry on going forward either, which means we need to figure this out. So listen to this, gentleman. It's labeled Western media copium. And again, this is what the two-party system gets us. This is coming from The Economist. Listen to the ways that these stories, listen to what's happening in the stories, and then listen to why they are how they are portrayed as bad. And you're going to notice a very obvious theme very quickly here that will blow your mind.
The Yangtze River was so polluted, no ecologist thought that it could ever be restored. Somehow China pulled it off. At what cost, though? They planned and pulled off the largest expansion of wind turbines in world history. At what cost, though? The Chinese population is getting smarter while Western populations get dumber.
These are headlines.
At what cost? China's invested more into the environment and sustainability than any other country on earth. At what cost? Their cars are better and cheaper than Western cars. At what cost? They have a stable economy. At what cost, though? Their zero COVID policy was massively successful in avoiding the same death toll the West had. At what cost, though? They're investing in other countries within the global south like Ethiopia and Cambodia. At what cost? They say they've eliminated poverty. That can't be true. 9 out of 10 Chinese families own their own homes. Yeah, this is all going to fall apart. There's no way this is going to work.
That's what happens when you allow the two-party system to kind of dictate the rules of engagement, is we no longer even really have a firm grasp of what's possible and what isn't anymore. In a way that anytime we find out that somebody has figured out to address some of the issues that have been facing the American population for so long, they act like that's a crazy idea. They act like it's out of the realm of possibility. And both Democrats and Republicans are willing to play along with that charade. And when people like Katrina DeVille, like Francesca Hong, like a Bernie Sanders, El Sayed, Plattner, minus the scandals, Mamdani, Ramos, the list goes on, when they show up and say, excuse me, that better things are possible, that's when they are labeled as radical. That's when they're labeled as extremists. That's when we're told, have you seen that they don't like Thanksgiving? Have you seen that they, they want to enact Sharia law? Have you seen that the senator of Michigan won't commit to sending Michigan's tax dollars overseas? They try and present these things as bad ideas, and the entire time we're told that we need to be scared of China. I think the reason they want us scared of China is because they don't want us listening to the things that they are accomplishing. Again, I don't think China's perfect. I think they went a bit over the top with their COVID protocols, but you know what? Based on all data, it seems as though their death toll was a shit ton better than the stuff that we were doing. I see Carla saying maybe Plattner doesn't get mentioned with the others anymore. So here's the deal, Carla. There's reporting that the second Plattner won the primary, when the only scandal against him that point was the tattoo, Democratic operatives said, we don't know how yet, but we're going to get him out of this primary. And it turns out that he had enough skeletons in his closet that it worked. And he should have been out, again, for the record. But it doesn't change the fact that he was an incredibly strong candidate with very good ideas that are not being echoed in the same way. They have a DSA candidate in there now. By and large, I should be like, oh, 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. It isn't the same. It isn't the same. He was a very strong candidate, and there's a reason why they pulled out both barrels to try and take him down. And unfortunately, he's a piece of shit, and he deserved it. But I get your point. I'm not saying you have to agree with me, but I'm not taking him out of the list. He was good. He was going to beat the shit out of Susan Collins. The Democrats were trying everything. The way they continued talking about the tattoo is exactly what Wisconsin liberals are doing with the Thanksgiving tweet. It's the same thing. It's just different stories. I'll check out the what the Courage Caucus is. I'm not familiar with it, Al. Speaking of the West Coast wages, that MIT site says I need $28 here in Oregon for a single adult with no kids. Do you feel like that's an accurate depiction, Stephen? Ethan says the rules are all made up. We made them up. We can change them whenever we want to collectively. That's Ethan. That's quite literally where the title outside the box came from. And like I'm not even lying to you. Like I always say, we act like the economy is the equivalent of the tornado we had to deal with last Monday. Like there's a lot of people whose lives are significantly more difficult and they are still going through that as a result of the destruction brought about by last Monday's weather. That is something that we cannot avoid. That is an act of nature. It is something, well, I mean, we could probably do something about climate change to address this, but tornadoes were happening before the climate change issue, right? So it's just a matter of the prevalence, strength, in the location where they are arriving. But principally, there's not a whole lot that you can do about it. The economy was made up by people. We act like, oh, we have to. How is the economy going to react to this? We act like it's some kind of omnipotent being that exists outside of man made construction. And I know you don't, Ethan. Obviously, I don't. But we as a collective society act as though there's nothing that we can do about it. And you're exactly right. The rules are the rules made by people that, quite frankly, made rules to benefit them. I call it drives some people in my life nuts, but they'll talk to me about certain investment programs, certain rules that exist within the economy. And I'm like, yeah, that's white people bullshit. I don't really pay attention to any of that, but it's a serious issue. These rules exist mostly to keep us in a box. And the second you acknowledge that that's why they exist, it's very easy to conceive, at least, of not operating with them in them anymore. It is a much higher level conversation, though, to talk about untangling this ball of string that has so obviously been used to kind of rein us in here, which is very unfortunate. But you're exactly right, and I couldn't agree more with you. Robin says, I've heard the streets are pristine in China. I don't know. See, and like that's just it. I don't know what's propaganda and what's not, but what I do know is America is just as guilty of propagandizing their people as China is of theirs. We just have more flavors of propaganda. Do you want to hear propaganda telling you the white nationalists are holding you back, or do you want propaganda telling you that the immigrants and trans people are holding you back? The only propaganda we're not going to give you is identifying the exact problems that we actually have. China is not perfect. I don't want this to sound like I'm saying, why aren't we more like China? I'm absolutely not saying that. But also, I sort of am. I feel like there are a lot of countries, and when you watch Tom Tiffany, who's never going to agree to come on this show, but keep in mind, Tom Tiffany is going to go around shitting on socialism/communism, because right wingers can be morons with this shit. They're going to be shitting on socialism and communism, saying Francesca Hong and the Democratic Socialists want to make us Venezuela. They want to make us Argentina. They want to make us Cuba. And there will not be a single liberal media company that is willing to say, why do you always pick the countries that America has intervened in to ruin their economy and not address the white people countries that seem to have figured out a way to make democratic socialism work pretty effectively for both company owners as well as the workers that work there? Why is it that nobody wants to bring that conversation up? And like I said yesterday, it is just as much a matter of what they are talking about as it is a matter of what they are not talking about. And when they are not bringing that up, when allegedly MSNBC is a leftist network, CNN is a leftist network, why is that never brought up? Why are they willing to feed that narrative rather than question it? And again, I believe it's twofold. I believe they can't piss off their military industrial complex masters because, much to the chagrin of right wingers, most third world countries are third world countries because we stole all their wealth. or some imperial nation did. It's not always just America, but the last couple decades / centuries were pretty good at it. And then second, they obviously don't want as many people as possible realizing that plenty of other countries with significantly lower GDPs per capita than us have figured out how to fund a lot of these programs, and their countries are not racking up never-ending debt, and they're not racking up a complete loss of autonomy and freedoms and whatever the hell else people are talking about. There are more candidates willing to say the right things now, and I am so excited about it. But we need them to be louder, and more importantly, we need people to be able to sift through the bullshit. We got a couple more comments piling in here. We are getting close to the end of the show, but I'm happy to jump into it. Jay just simply says, very good point, Ben. You guys need to say that stuff to me more often. Sharon says, I will vote for both. Oh, wait, hold on. I think that the conversation goes further back. But Ben, have you ever considered space lasers? I have not. That's hilarious. All right, hold on. It's the candidates who have outright said they'll vote to impeach Trump. I don't need the courage to vote blue. Trump is trash. I love Katrina and Hong, but I don't think either can win in Wisconsin. There are too many racist, uneducated voters in Wisconsin that will vote for the same guy whose campaign is gender operations. Here's the thing, though, Sharon, is that there's like data centers with the red circle with the slash going through it signs next to Tom Tiffany signs. So if Democrats could maybe shut the fuck up about the Thanksgiving tweet for a second and start running the data center stuff up the flagpole, because Tom Tiffany will not commit to doing anything about doing anything about data centers. He says we need to protect farmland, but he is not talking about protecting communities from it. Right there. Hammer that point home for the next 4 months. Then you have an illegal war. Then you have an economy that isn't working for us. Then you have tariffs that are only making things more expensive. Then you have a housing market that's screwing over the younger generations. I believe the idea that Wisconsin is too racist or sexist to vote for Francesca Hong, to me, and I'm not accusing you of this, Sharon, I believe it is a blue MAGA talking point that they hope sticks with people of a certain generation, and I'm just not going to buy it. People don't give a shit. First of all, whites are uniquely not racist towards Asians. So, in and of itself, that's not an issue. Again, Kamala Harris and Hillary Clinton both lost in Wisconsin, not because Wisconsin is sexist, but because they sucked as candidates and the electorate told the Democrats what they wanted. And the Democrats decided, no, you don't. You actually want this. No takebacks, Jay. It's a rule on this show. Katrina is going to have a more uphill battle for you. And for the record, vote for who you want. I don't think she's going to come out of the primary. That's not to say that I disagree with her policies at all, but I do think she has an uphill battle, unfortunately, in 2026. Who knows how enlightened we can be as time goes on. Thanksgiving, get rid of another paid holiday. Big business will love that. I'm surprised right-wingers aren't running on that. If that's true, we need more candidates that don't fit the trad mold, not less. Steven says, luckily, I'm in a low rent situation, but yeah, absolutely. We're back up to $4.50 gas. Jarmani says, my 75-year-old aunt in Woodruff area is planning to vote for Hong, which tells me her kids in the area will also. Probably. I think the younger generations will vote for both, but most northern Wisconsins are older and Republican. You're not wrong there. It's not going to be easy, but I still maintain, as of today, I think Francesca Hong wins 53-47 in the general. I don't know what's going to happen in the primary. I think any one of the Democratic candidates can beat Tom Tiffany because he's bad. Get your tomatoes out of here, lady. The question is there enough young people who will vote to offset the older white guys? I think they will. Oh, I love that, Susan. She says, I watch because of this podcast. You're lovely. Gas where I live, $5.23 a gallon. Blah. I want to do the circle and slash on a Tom Tiffany sign. I feel like people would be into that. Farmland zoning prevention doesn't mean shit when you can just rezone it after a farmer that is underwater wants a way out. It's a complete non-answer. I agree. It's because he's in bed. He is in bed with the data center companies, which is objectively an unpopular decision. Again, find me an ad where he even says Donald Trump's name. You will not find it. Why? Because Donald Trump is so far under fucking water that he is not able to attach his name to Hez in a meaningful way, because unless you are part of the diehard cult, I'm telling you right now, honest to God independents will vote for the woman who has an issue with tying a holiday to genocide before they are going to vote for this economy. Like, the idea, the only way they don't is if the Democratic establishment in the Democratic media is willing to play ball with these bullshit Republican talking points. Yeah, I know that you guys can't afford anything and people are drowning in medical debt and in college debt and in housing debt and in grocery debt, and the cost of gasoline is so high, and we blew up a school of children. But Francesca Hong said one time she went in a restaurant and she felt uncomfortable as the only Asian person or Asian family in the restaurant. Can we really trust her as the governor? Like, what the fuck are we talking about here, guys? Like, all that needs to happen is the Democratic Party needs to fall in line the way they expected all of the progressives to fall in line, most of which that did, behind the centrist candidates for all of the other elections that we're talking about here. No one believes you work, Jarmani. It is virtue signaling to rural voters. A lot of them will fall for it unless someone Hong highlights it and they're willing to listen. Exactly. And then when Hong shows up with an anti-data center message, I think you have a higher likelihood that Hong will listen. Again, if you were not here at the beginning of the show in 2024, Wapaka voted 20,000 to 9,000 for Trump, 19,000 to 10,000 for Hovde, and 19,000 to 10,000 for Tony Weed. And then they filled a zoning meeting at 9 a.m. so full that they had to cancel the meeting and reschedule at a bigger venue so that people would be able to be heard. And Tom Tiffany is not giving a concrete answer about what he's going to do about data centers. That is how you handle this. Shut up about Thanksgiving. Shut up about white racism. And I'm talking to the libs. I realize conservatives are gonna conservative. Like, that's fine. There's nothing I can do about it. They're gonna Manchurian candidate the second they hear the word trans or abortion or any of the other no words that immediately gets them to stop thinking critically. The rest of us have a very straightforward way of thinking about this, and all that needs to happen is the media needs to fall into place. It's almost like they're canceling shows that are willing to talk about this in a meaningful way in the mainstream so that people are relegated to independent media to get these real answers. I Googled it out of curiosity before we call it a show here. Hold on. Wapaka zoning meeting Thursday. And then we're going to slide it over to news. There is not a single story on Google about the Wapaka zoning meeting yesterday. They got so full with a bunch of MAGA conservatives about data centers that they didn't want to talk about it. Nobody is talking about it. I shared it on my Facebook page, and I implore you, it's on my Facebook, it's on my TikTok, it's on my YouTube. Share it on your socials. Text it to your family members. Share it anywhere you need it to go out, because I'm telling you right now, they're trying to bury this story. They're trying to bury it because this is how you reach across the aisle and walk away with this election. Walk away with this election. Walkable flock cameras, exactly. All right, I think we fixed it. I'm going to call it a show. Thanks a lot for listening, guys. Subscribe to the freaking channel. Tell 3 friends to subscribe. Go out to the bars. Be like, I know a guy. We need 187 more. I don't know if I got any more during the show or not, but as of the beginning of the show, we need 187 more subscribers. Those of you on TikTok, I know most of you have bedtimes. I'm going to be doing a TikTok talk show at 10:45 our time, PM. Anybody who is awake. Apparently, it's got a decent-sized audience. I don't know what they're going to ask me about, but they found out that I'm a media person that was fired, so on and so forth. I'm up to 8:15 now, Carla says. So we gained 2 more. Thank you very much, Chris. We need 185 more in order for me to monetize this thing here. So, yes, thank you, Justin. Jay saying she'll log on tonight. Good stuff. Good stuff. I think we did it. But other than that, we'll be back on Monday. Probably a couple more interviews that day as well. It is we are 5 days away from primary season, so we have to get into it there. But I'm pretty excited about it. Going to be jumping into it, and again, I'm going to be teasing the shit out of this. I don't know if I'm going to be doing a collab with Resistance Radio or if I'm doing it on my own. I am going to be hosting a program while the results are coming in Tuesday night. So if anybody wants to like have a group of people to watch the primary results come in, and I might keep it rolling for a while, or I'll get really tired and we won't. We'll see what ends up happening, but that'll be Tuesday night, and I'll be teasing it over the course of the coming days. But I am going to have an election watch party online for anybody that wants to watch it with me. I'll share it. I don't know the exact name of it, but I will share it, Mickey, the TikTok tonight. But yeah, so Tuesday we will be doing a watch party. If there's anybody who wants to watch it with me there. So all right, that's gonna do it. Subscribe to my channel. Just search Ben Cominos. Follow me on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram. Eventually Twitch. Still haven't done that yet. Maybe this weekend, but I'm not making any false promises. All right, guys, that's going to do it. I will talk to everybody another day. Thank you very much.